you can't sleep, can't eat. I couldn't get the image out of my vision. This very pale little blonde boy. And just however many seconds it was that I saw of that film, playing over and over. My mother moved to Devon when I was in my late teens, and so I finished schooling there. Met my son's father, and we were together for 17 years, but we went our own sort of separate ways. We just grew apart, really, and separated.
And how did you meet Pete?
So I met him through Plenty of Fish. Anyway, he seemed great because he was really into wildlife and sports and, outdoorsy kind of stuff. And I just thought he sounds lovely. And we met up in a local sort of beauty spot where there's a really nice cafe, and just did a 20-minute coffee on the first meet. He was a really nice guy, intelligent, and just a gentle giant. He was a big chap, but he seemed really gentle, really soft with it. Opened doors. The conversation was always very nice. It was never anything nasty. There just didn't seem anything nasty about him. He was just always very thoughtful, very laid back, respectful, and just, came across as being a really gentle person.
How did you feel like coming away from that first meeting?
Kind of excited. I was like, yeah, he's seems like a really great bloke. His family he talked about them. They seemed lovely. They seemed into the same kind of things as my family, and horses and all kinds. And yeah, I felt quite excited.
How did the relationship progress from there, Rosie?
We sort of met maybe twice a week at first, and it would be sort of, we'd go for a meal or a walk. We walked quite a lot, so we'd go for a walk or a meal or something. So it started slowly, and he was really respectful, and I thought that's really nice that he's so respectful, doesn't sort of, try and rush things or make a move, or I just thought that was great. We discussed sort of, maybe we should move in together. It was just, a few sort of random conversations at first, and then he lived on a farm, well, not a farm, but he lived on a place where they had horses, and he used to look after the horses in exchange for the accommodation. So it kind of made sense for me to move in with him. So we sort of discussed that, and, I'd been to work with him a lot and seen where he worked. I'd met his friends, I'd met his family. Everything just seemed so lovely, and just like it felt natural.
And at that point, I suppose, what was the relationship like between him and your son?
They didn't really have a relationship. I mean, my relationship with my son has always been incredibly close. And so that continued. My son doesn't need a father. He's got a father, a really good father. It didn't really matter, and my relationship with Pete was, to me, a separate thing anyway.
And then tell me a little bit about the day that your life changed forever, Rosie.
So by this point, we'd moved house and we had our own place, and we'd left the property where we were minding the horses. And we had a home office where we'd keep sort of, computer and desk and bits and pieces, a shared office that everybody had access to. It was mainly me and Pete, well, it was me and Pete that used it. And I had a card arrive that morning. I wanted to activate the card. We had a card reader in the office. So I just went in to grab the card reader, opened the drawer where it normally was. It wasn't in there. So I looked in the other drawers. It wasn't in there. So I thought, what's he done with that? Thinking, it's probably under a piece of paperwork or in the filing tray or something. He's thrown it somewhere. Great. So I started looking through. I couldn't find it. And the more I couldn't find it, the more annoyed I got. So I started looking. There were a couple of boxes. So I lifted the lid of the first one, lifted the lid of the second one, and there it was, in with a whole load of electrical cables and stuff. Grabbed it, walked off. When I got to where I was going, looked in the back, and there was something in there. And I thought, well, that's a bit odd. So I pulled it out, and it was an SD card, I think you call them, the tiny little cards that go into whatever. So I thought, it's a bit strange. So I put it into the iPad, the Apple iPad, and this box popped up, bottom left, and there was a small child there. So I ripped it out of the computer and sat there and just thought, of course it's not. That's just absolutely mental. That's just ridiculous. So I put it back in, and this time a box popped up with a load of titles. And all of the titles, every single one, was something, pretty horrendous. And I just thought, oh my God, this is actually what I thought it was. And I think I must have clicked on the first one. Because, you can't, you've got to know, haven't you? You just, curiosity and having to know. I clicked on the first one, and another couple of seconds of that, and I was like, God, can't actually believe. Yeah, you just can't believe it. Can't believe what you're seeing. You can't see that and ever forget what you've seen. It never leaves you. I ripped it out after having seen it anywhere between 2 and 5 seconds, probably wasn't as long as 5 seconds. I don't think you need to see it for that long to realise what it is. I think I went on to autopilot. I just knew I had to do something. I knew I had to phone the police. So I picked up my phone, walked to the front of the house, and I had to speak to someone first. I had to connect with someone first. I really had to connect with someone who I loved, who loved me first. Sounds weird, but I had to. So I phoned. I was studying to be a hypnotherapist at the time. So I phoned my tutor and said, I've just found child pornography in my house, child abuse in my house. And I know I need to phone the police, but I need someone to tell me I'm doing the right thing. And he said, yeah, you are doing the right thing. I said, okay, thank you. Put the phone down, phoned the police. And they were brilliant. They just stayed on the phone with me. And I said, he's due home any minute. I do not want him in this house. And she said, lock all of your doors. We're sending someone up right now. And she said, I'll stay on the phone with you. And she just stayed on the phone and said, what have you found? How did you find it? Blah, blah. And the police turned up. And almost at the same time, Pete turned up, and he was knocking on the door saying, Rosie, let me in. He must have thought I was in the garden, because then he took his phone out and phoned me. And I've still got that voicemail on my phone that I've never listened to. And then the police turned up, and they took him sort of just slightly away from the door, and one of the policemen knocked and said, can you let me in, please? So I let him in, and they arrested him right in front of the front porch, and we watched. And the policeman said, he's as cool as a cucumber. And I said, yeah, he always is. I said, he's really laid back. And he said, well, not many people are laid back when they're being arrested for something like this.
How was that experience watching the arrest for you, Rosie?
It's confusing. It's so mixed, because there's this person that you have been in love with, and although that is almost destroyed immediately, when you find something like this, that love is, it's like it's made of ice and someone's taken a hammer to it. It shatters. And it ends. It just ends. And you know that, but still there are all these emotions and feelings and things that you're fighting. When we watched him being arrested, it was like watching television. I think I was a bit just numb. You have no processing time at all for anything that's happening. It's all racing and racing in your head, and everything happening so quickly. He was arrested and gone. And then you're on to the next thing. They want to come in and they're searching your house.
And what did they find in the house when they searched?
In his office, there were lots of memory cards. I don't know whether there was anything on them. I don't know whether what they found, because they found a lot of videos and images from category A to C, I think. Category A is the worst form of indecent image that you can get.
Do you know how many images and videos there were?
I think it was around 600, and a lot of them were category A.
Can you talk me through the conversation that you had with your son?
It's just bizarre, because your brain is literally rushing and rushing and rushing. You can't keep up with yourself with all the thoughts coming in and out. And I just thought, I've got to call him down and ask him. See him standing there on the stairs. He was about, I think he was about 15. And he came down and sort of leant on the banister and said, what's up? And I said, I've had to phone the police because I found something in the office. And he just sort of looked at me a bit confused, really. And I said, I need to ask you if Pete's ever touched you. And I said, has he ever talked to you inappropriately? Has he ever done anything that's made you feel awkward or worried? Or he said, no. He said, no, not at all. I didn't really ever do anything with him. So he was fine about it. He was all teenagery and laid back and cool. But to have to ask your child that is, I'm so grateful that I got the answer that I got. I'm so grateful that I wasn't one of the ones, who had to deal with yeah, there have been times. I'm so grateful.
What were those first hours and days like after the arrest?
Numb, pain, questions, just questions. Why didn't I know? What's wrong with me? Why me? And you can't sleep, can't eat. I couldn't get the image out of my vision. I tried to do so many things to distract myself. I tried to put on a really gritty film, You can't focus on anything. The only thing that was in my vision was this very pale little blonde boy. And just however many seconds it was that I saw of that film playing over and over, in my vision. You know, and then you've got to address how you feel about yourself. You know, what do you do when you look in the mirror and all you can see is just someone disgusting? Because that's what I saw. I just wanted to scrub myself and bleach myself, and I just felt absolutely gross. Because he touched me. I let him touch me. You know, how could I have let someone like that touch me? He was attracted to children. You know, it knocks your confidence. It knocks your trust in people. And then you've got the whole thing of, what do you tell people? Do you phone up and say, I can't come to work today because I've just found out that the love of my life is a paedophile? Yeah, of course you don't. What do you tell people? How much do you tell people? Well, don't you tell people?
Obviously, the aftermath of you discovering those images and essentially you and your son being kind of victims of this crime, what was the support that you were offered after that? And were the police and people around you supportive of your experience of seeing those images? How did the police help you in that time?
Well, it's funny you should say, you know, you and your son were victims. I don't think of it that way at all. I think that we obviously are hugely affected by what happened at the time. I don't consider myself a victim. I consider myself somebody who has been through a very traumatic experience and was lucky enough to have a lot of friends who were able to help her, and I was. So I don't consider myself to be a victim. The children, they're the victims. And that is exactly how the police see it, and that is exactly how the police phrase it. That evening, after I'd given my statement, they said, we can put you in touch with victim support. I'm not sure that they'll be able to help you because effectively you're not a victim. So that was it. There was no support. I don't think the police have the resources. They don't even have the resources to process the amount of indecent images that they're picking up. It took quite a while to process. At the time, the police said to me that they are arresting, this was in May 2020. At the time, he said we're arresting about 450 people a month for viewing indecent images. 450. So the knock-on effect of that, you know, how many mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, work colleagues are just about to find out that their best mate, their brother, their sister, their, you know, mum, dad, whatever, has been arrested for this crime. I had no idea that the case was going to court. I had a message come through on Messenger from someone that I didn't even know. I think it was an ex of Pete's. And I had a literally just message pop up on my phone, and it said something along the lines of disgusted to see he only got such and such. And I was, I had to pull the car over. I was shaking, thinking, what's going on? What? Opened it up and read that message from her, Googled, and saw that, the newspapers, everybody else knew before me that he'd been to court and been sentenced.
And what was Pete's conviction?
So he was sentenced to 9 months, suspended for 2 years. So no time at all. He is on the sex offenders register. which is great as long as you keep your own name, because then, wherever you go, people can check to see if you're on the sex offenders register. Clare's law and Sarah's law. These are laws brought in to protect people, to protect men and women from getting involved with somebody they shouldn't be involved with. Those laws are put there, absolutely amazing laws put there to protect people. Totally worthless, because sex offenders could change their names. The law has changed slightly. Unfortunately, as with most things, there are some loopholes.
Recent reports from the National Crime Agency suggest that 80% of people in the UK caught with images of children being sexually abused avoid going to prison. How does that statistic make you feel, Rosie?
Sick. So after I rebuilt my life a little bit, I realised that there wasn't any support. I looked around for groups, I hunted, I tried to find ways of getting in touch with other people, because I felt I needed that connection. Nothing. Couldn't find a group, couldn't find anything, anywhere. So I thought, right, I'll set my own up then. So I set up a CIC, community interest company called Survive and Thrive, specifically for anyone who'd been affected by a sex offender. So many of these people talk to no one because they can't. They won't talk to anyone. They won't even go and see a counsellor. They won't talk to their doctor about it because they're scared it'll go onto their records and then their whole town, village might know. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about how it feels to have been in love with a paedophile. I have been called all kinds of things. And people have made their mind up that I must have known. They wouldn't let anyone find out. They have become master manipulators. They are good at what they do. But, having discovered something like that, you never stop asking yourself questions, ever. You never stop beating yourself up. Quite frankly, I don't need to be beaten up by everyone around me. I don't need to be judged and condemned by everyone around me. I've done it myself, thank you.
Why have you decided to tell people your story?
I want to bring it out into the open because this is something that people will not talk about. And until we bring this out into the open and we can talk about it, we can't expect to make any progression with stopping or making a dent in the amount of, child abuse material that's out there. The point of this, the whole point of this story is not me at all. It's not even Pete. It's not the point. The point is the children. We have a duty to protect them. And that's why I talk.
They killed her and the baby. Even to this day, it still hurts that I left her there with that baby and they never got out of there, which does make me realise that I was the next victim.